All right. I'll be in the background in case there's any difficulties.
Okay, thank you. Afternoon, everyone. This is our bi-monthly contract class with the brokers, and you have me today, Rich Pisani at Calabasas and Westwood. So I thought I would get into today a couple of things. First, a lot of people don't know where to find our checklist, and I'm assuming it's the same at every office. I know it's the same at Westwood and Calabasas, so hopefully Long Beach you have the same. And I am going to hold on one sec, and I'm going to share my screen here. And it's in MyKW. So you go to mykw.kw.com and you log in. And it's difficult to find, so that's why I want to go over this. So if you go down here to quick links, it says MyKW and your market center, the number your market center, this is Calabasas, 850, the intranet, and you click on that, and that's going to bring you to this page, and then you go to Market Center, and then you go to Documents, and these are the documents specific to your individual market center. So if you see here at Calabasas, we have checklists for residential, we have checklists for commercial, we have market center documents, documents are addendums for leases and sales. But I want to specifically look at the checklist for a residential sale, 1 to 4, and for on a purchase, because most of you are going to do your purchases, and as opposed to a listing. There's not as many documents that are needed, but on a purchase, there are a lot of disclosures that you have to give to the buyers and that your sellers need to sign. So this is our checklist here at Calabasas, and I believe we've duplicated it for Westwood. So these are all the documents from here all the way from the top all the way to Richard is emailing me saying, where are we? Are we in Zoom or are we in Blue Jeans? So these are all the documents that are required to complete a file. Now there are additional optional documents that are notated down at the bottom, but these are the specific documents to a purchase. So I want to go over some disclosures, and if you were on the meeting this morning, and you would have heard our attorney, Jeff Kahn, speak about there was changes to the, there's Richard, there was changes to the TDS, no problem. I was going to give you a break because you took over my class last week. So I wanted to go over some disclosures, Richard. So I'm trying right now to sign into my zip forms, and it's being very slow. But this morning on the team meeting, Jeff Kahn spoke about the change to the TDS, and it's a really an important change. And gosh, this is there. Oh, is it? Well, it dumped out of it. Am I not going to have? Oh, that's going to be a disaster if I don't have access to my zip forms. Oh, yeah. And it's in the section 1 where it says, "Are you supplying additional?" There we go. supplying additional documentation or reports. And hold on. Sorry, I should have had this open. Richard, you're seeing me try to open this, correct? I want to make sure that you're seeing the right.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I was having the
All
same
right.
issue earlier. I couldn't get through.
Yeah, it must be something. Unfortunately, since zip forms went over to Lone Wolf, I think they've been having a few issues. All right, so here we are. We're at the TDS. So and it's in this section 1, coordination with other disclosures, and there's 3 choices. Inspection reports completed pursuant to the contract of the sale or receipt of deposit. Additional inspection reports or disclosures, and as Jeff
Rich,
mentioned,
all I'm
yes,
seeing is the login page. I don't see any forms up yet.
you're not seeing it. Oh, no. Wait, let me stop sharing, then I'll reshare. Hold on. Are you seeing it now?
Black page at the moment. There we go. You're up.
There we go. All right, great. So it's the inspection reports, additional inspection reports, and this is the one that most of your sellers are going to check. And it's no substituted disclosures for this transfer. So that's usually going to be the choice. But make sure that there is something checked there. Because if there isn't, if it's left unchecked, nothing is checked, then that form is deemed incomplete. And then the buyer, even after they've removed all contingencies, has a way out. They have a right of rescission up until they are, because this is a required document per California state law. So this has to happen unless the seller is exempt. So so make sure that this is completed, and all pages are completed, and you aren't your seller isn't leaving anything blank. And if they've answered yes to any one of these questions, then there has to be an explanation for it. And that's very, very important. And then on the 3rd page, you as the listing agent, you have a very important job to do. You have to, it's required in all of our offices that an agent do an agent visual inspection disclosure. So you need to make sure that that is checked. And as the listing agent, if you haven't supplied the buyer with your avid, this is not complete. So you need to include that. And the earlier you include it, the better. I know agents, they love to wait until, let's do it at the final walkthrough, or let's do it during the inspection. How about doing it when you take the listing? That's a great idea. And make sure that you supply that when you supply the TDS, because this form isn't complete until you sign this form. So any other notes on the TDS? Richard?
No, I think we're there. Because again, if they wait till the last minute, then the TDS timeframes still kick in, or it's not complete. So
right,
do
exactly.
the avid when you are doing the walkthrough, or hopefully prior to, as a buyer's agent. You can,
yes.
If it's a place they really like, or it's their second look at the property, do your avid at the same time, because it needs to go out with the TDS. That's hard
Absolutely.
to do, though. I know. Yeah.
I know it is. It is sometimes hard to do. So I wanted to go back to. I'm going to stop sharing this. So because I think that it won't. I'm going back to this checklist as to other forms. Now, along with the TDS is the SBQ, and I call the SBQ basically the TDS on steroids, because it gets a little more in depth. It gets a little more down to the nitty gritty. It goes into the neighborhood. It goes into a lot of other things, And where the TDS is by law, you have to supply that. The SBQ is contractual. They have put the requirement for a seller, unless exempt from supplying a TDS, they've made that the SBQ is contractually required. So that means that it can be countered out. It has been in the past. I've seen it. A lot of new constructions don't do SBQs, and they don't supply it, and it's been countered out if they use a regular CAR form. So basically, the SBQ is the same way. It makes sure that everything is answered. You can't answer these questions for your client, but if you answer yes to anything, then there needs to be an explanation. And if you were also on the call earlier today on the team meeting, then you heard me talk about Glide, and Glide is a great system to do these disclosures, because it forces your clients where they can't miss a question. If they have questions about something specific, then they can ask you questions back, and you can have a back and forth with your client as to what, if they have a certain question about it. So it's a great resource. And like we said, there is a basic that's free, and try it for free. And and if you want to try the paid, do it monthly for a while, and then if you're really getting a lot out of the paid version, then do a yearly thing. So I'm now going to go back.
Rich, let's talk
Yes.
about the additional disclosures and reports, etc., like an old home inspection, or it even says in there estimates and bids that the seller has on hand.
Absolutely. If you have those, if you represented, say you represented the seller as a buyer on the same property, you're representing an investor, and it was a flip. So you have those documents from, a few months ago. So you should be supplying those documents also. We're obligated to keep our files for 3 years. So if that was represented by even the brokerage, because it is, the listing belongs to the brokerage, it doesn't belong to the individual agent. So if you know that was in that brokerage within the last 3 years, you should track down those reports, because all of it, it's about disclose. So whatever you have, you should be giving. You should be giving them. Absolutely.
Or if the agent was on the buyer's side within the brokerage, and now you've got the listing.
Right. Exactly. It goes both ways. So yeah, and anything you have, you should be sharing. Absolutely. I wanted to go. No, that's not the right one. Sorry. I talked about the Avid. So I think that's not it. You're not seeing it, right?
That was the TDS that we looked at.
Oh, it was the TDS?
Third page of the TDS.
Then, all right, yes. So here we go. All right. We talked about the Avid, so let's it's my favorite thing to talk about, is people who have taken my classes before. And here's why. If there's a dispute about disclosures, attorneys are going to pull this form every time, and they're going to look at this form, and they're going to determine how well of a job you did based on how you filled this form out. So it is an agent visual inspection disclosure. And it doesn't only mean visual. It's what you smell, it's what you hear, besides what you see. So it's very important that you take time to to fill out this form. And when I say take time, because if an attorney is getting their eyes on this and all they're seeing is nothing noted, or hardwood floors, or a little mention here, a little mention there, then they're going to ask you a question: how long did it take you to fill this out? And you're going to say, oh, it took me a couple of hours to do the whole thing, go through the house. So it took you a couple of hours to say nothing noted and nothing and all this. So it matters how much time you take to do this. And this is not a marketing tool. This is it's specifically described by CAR as a form to basically talk the buyer out of buying this property. Give them everything that's wrong with it. You know, give them everything that is negative about the property so they can decide whether they want to move forward or not. That's what it's for. I don't like avids where it says hardwood floors, granite countertop. That's a marketing material. It's not about that. It's about the scratches in the hardwood floors. It's about the chips in the granite countertops. It's about the scuffs on the walls. And it's about everything. You take time to look at that property and note every little thing that is wrong with that. And that's your job for this. And if you hear a lot of noise, if you hear a lot of street noise, you know that there's something wrong with it. If you hear the neighbors upstairs, that all has to be noted on this form. And it's really, really important because, like I said, this is the first piece of paper in regards to disclosures. This is the first piece of paper that they're going to pull. Richard, do you have anything to add about our friend the Avid?
I did want to ask, do you guys want your questions during, or do you want to just cover the questions that are going on Facebook?
No, if they're pertinent to what we're talking about, I'm fine. You know, I've been trying to look at the Facebook, but I get too distracted sometimes. So, are there questions regarding the Avid, Patricia?
One person requested that the documents you're showing, could those be added to coastal properties documents?
Oh, mean the checklist?
Yes, the checklist.
I'm willing to share my checklist I'll share it with Richard and he can decide what he wants to do with it.
We have a checklist online that's available, but they need to go to the templates class that we have to create their templates for listings and for buyers.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah, the boss told you what you got to do.
Okay, and then is there a way to find the information if the seller does not have their old inspections?
They don't have it, right?
If they don't have it, they don't have it.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they had a bid done for a new kitchen in the last 90 days, they should hand that over. That's what I was getting at with other items a seller may have, because the way the SPQ is worded is estimates and invoices and things like that.
Right.
On the Avid, Rich, have you come across where the listing agent or the seller won't sign the buyer's agent Avid because the buyer's agent was too honest in it?
Too honest? Yeah. I have had that before, but I try to explain when I'm the listing agent, I've tried to explain that's what their job is. Their job is to point out every little thing, and I would be doing the same thing, if he hadn't already seen my Avid. So you try to be gentle with the seller and just let them know that this is what their job is, and it's to their advantage because you want the buyer to know every little thing that's wrong with it and still go forward, because once again, it's all about disclose, disclose, disclose. So, you know, and if they still refuse to sign it, I mean, you can't force somebody to sign something. You write it that seller refused to sign. So, I mean, there's nothing really you can do. I, that in itself shows that they were presented with it and they still refused to sign it. So, yeah.
And the key is for the buyer to sign this anyway. But
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So, anything else about this form?
Those are the only
I
two
don't.
questions I saw on there.
Okay.
Thank you.
okay, what
Great.
about leaving something blank? Because there isn't a third bathroom. What do you suggest?
Oh, what about, say that again?
So, like, if there's only 2 bathrooms, I have advised agents to put NA for the third bathroom to answer every single box with something.
Oh, yeah, you could do that. Absolutely. I mean, um, I don't necessarily see a problem with leaving it blank if it's, because what you're also supplying is the MLS sheet. So the MLS sheet in your file. So if the MLS sheet says 2 bathrooms, then it coincides with that. But if there is, you know,
You have
there's
other
discrepancies.
room, there's a lot of lines. So I just suggest if it's not
Right.
applicable, put something in that box. Don't leave any of the
Sure.
boxes blank.
Sure. It doesn't hurt. Absolutely not. Um, and then it's also a good place, you know, you also need to, like other observed or known conditions not specified above. What would be some examples of that, Richard? Other known conditions not specified.
We've actually come across where they're in the backyard next door smoking marijuana, and it's just
Hmm.
wafting through the backyard.
Yeah.
We have a situation right now where the county has a short-term condemnation use of the backyard. Um, we've had screeching, the freeway noises, the helicopter flies over the top every, once a day or something. Just minor things that you're aware of because you're used to the area, work in the area, that the seller may not have noted in their
Right.
TDS and SPQ.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a townhouse, and it had grounds, and I observed um, people letting their dogs off leash. You know, a lot of people don't think that that's a problem. You know, if it's a friendly dog and nice golden retriever, but your buyer may be deathly afraid of dogs. So then, if you know it, if you observe it, you should be putting it on this form. Um, so yes, absolutely.
So when I sell my
So
house, I have to disclose to the buyer that my wife got bit by the dogs 2 doors down.
absolutely, you do.
And now you do too, because you're the broker.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes, you
it's that
do.
kind of knowledge, that even if we are in a friendly discussion in the office and another agent discusses it with us as broker, it has to be disclosed. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, it becomes a material fact. Yeah.
right.
Yes. So other kind of disclosures I'm going to get out of this, and that people don't really know where it is. And I'm going to move my face. Oh, there we go. So you have the signature page for the earthquake, or even the earthquake questionnaire, and you can never find it. And I want to show you where you find it, and I'm hoping you're seeing what my screen is showing is that, if you're looking at the forms library, their CAR has their forms, but there's also something called California ePubs. So you click on that, And that's where actually the whole booklet, the earthquake booklet, and all of those homeowners energy and all of that, they're all there. They're 1 through 5, no, excuse me, 1 through 4 are all the guides which you can forward on to your clients via email. And then 6 is the earthquake hazard report, which if the building is 1960 or less, the single family, well, yeah, 1960 or less, then this also needs to be filled out by the seller. So it's another, and this is another form I believe that Glide will allow you to do, because it has the answers. It requires the answering of certain questions. So yeah. So if it's 60 or under, your seller needs to answer these questions.
For coastal properties, we've just made it mandatory for virtually everything but a new build.
Oh, really?
It doesn't hurt to fill it out, and I prefer them to have the answer. Since we're earthquake country, I prefer it on every file.
Sure, absolutely. But that's where to find it, and also to find the signature page that you supplied. You supplied the booklet to your buyer, and that's also there under EPUBs, and a lot of people don't know where to find it. So I think that's really good to know.
So that we work for my team is we send those booklets with that page. So
sure.
It used to be DocuSign couldn't handle that much data and that larger PDFs, but it's able to handle all that now. So we send it out, even when we do a lease, same thing. We send it all out at one time. So it's overwhelming, but I'd rather know they got it through DocuSign.
And now I'm not sure, how does get back to CAR? How does your office, Richard, handle like the water conserving and plumbing fixtures? Now, there used to be 2 forms. There was the water heater and smoke detector form, and then also there was a carbon monoxide disclosure form. But in our office, we're using this combined form, which is the WCMD, the water conserving plumbing fixtures and carbon monoxide detector notice. Are you also doing that, or are you still requiring the other forms?
We require both forms.
You require both?
Yeah, it's just a signature. It's just easy to get it done up front, again, in your template when you send out your listing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And I should also say that in regards to the water heater and smoke detector, that was incorporated into the TDS. So a lot of people don't require that anymore because of the TDS. And if you, as an agent, you're going to come across a lot of offices that they still require other documents that maybe you don't require. And like Richard said, it's just a signature. Just have your buyer, sign it, or have your seller sign it, even if your office doesn't require it. If it's something that's really kind of weird, that it's like, why are you giving me this? That kind of doesn't make sense. Go to your broker and talk to them about it. But
exactly.
But yeah, for the most part, it's just a signature. But there are those sellers or buyers that read every line, which is a great thing. But there's something in there that they don't like, and then they refuse to sign it. So. And then there's your answer. They refuse to sign it. So,
especially with some of the companies that have drawn their own disclosures up as something, if they're from a different area and really nothing applicable locally, but their broker requires it on every single deal.
Right. Absolutely. So, Richard, is there a disclosure that you would like to talk about?
These are really the biggest ones.
They
I would
are.
just rather see that we put together a couple more template classes and different times of the day, so that
Sure.
yeah, everybody can help you get the template put together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Let's go to the ones that are always confusing. Let's see. Let me go back to.
You mean besides the
uh,
COVID ones?
Yeah, exactly. Um, I'm gonna get. Okay. So, contingency for sale of buyer's property. Um, so, this is where um, the buyer has to sell their property in order to buy this property. And this is confusing because the very first line, 1A, says this agreement is contingent on the close of escrow of buyer's property. So, right there, it then it goes into time into about time frames about getting into escrow and all of that. So it is confusing that in one respect it says close of escrow, and then another they have 17 days to get into escrow if they're not already in escrow. What I tell my agents is, because if you're the buyer's agent and the listing agent's going to go to you after the 17 days are up, say they've identified the property, well, they want this contingency removed. And what I say is, don't, because the contingency is on the successful close, is on the close of escrow. You can remove the contingency to find a property, but I tell them not to remove the contingency totally. I don't know how you handle that, Richard, but it really is on the close of escrow, and that's why this form is confusing, and a lot of people don't understand it. Um, so I'd like to get your take on this form.
Right now, we're working on a challenge where the seller is delayed by 10 days on their purchase of the replacement, but the buyer's rate lock is expiring, and it's like $300 a day to extend this rate lock. So we're battling right now with, this is what the COP says, this you have to do this, and it's tough. Even though it's all in writing, you still
Right,
find clients that aren't willing to follow it, be
right.
on the advice of their lender. So
So
yeah, this is a tough one.
it is, it is because it's kind of contradictory, and uh, excuse me. The one thing that I do advise, if you're not in escrow, then you know, absolutely give yourself time to get into escrow, whether it's listed or properties listed or not listed. But also make sure that in 8B, you're checking that box, delayed right to notify buyer. Um, and what that is that if you don't check that box, that then within those 17 days, or how many days that you're trying to find a replace, you're trying to get into escrow, the seller can come to your client and say, okay, we have another buyer over here and he's ready to go. So either you remove this contingency or we're going to cancel. So we're going to give you a notice of form and then we're going to cancel. So what this does is that it delays them being able to do that for a time period. So they can't go and push you out of the way for somebody else. So absolutely make sure that you're checking that box to delay the right to notify buyer. Now, usually it's the same amount of days for the that you're trying to get into escrow. There is a box that for the entire term of the agreement, but there's a slim chance that you probably get that to go by. So
That's when you have an
that's
inexperienced listing agent that kind of overlooks
right.
that or something.
Right. Or it's a market that, they're just desperate to try to sell this house and they'll agree to anything. So but we haven't seen that kind of market in a while. So
No.
excuse me. So all right. So that's that form. I don't think I have anything more about that form because it would only confuse you even more. Talk to your broker about that form.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So let's see, what else can we talk about? The flip side of
I
that is,
Yeah,
go
because
ahead.
I confused what you were talking about. So yeah, pull up the other, the COP, I think it is, right?
No, that was the COP. It's
Okay,
the
the other one.
RS
Is it PR or RS?
PR. Yeah,
Yeah.
PR property. Where are you? Oh, there it is. SPRP. Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, there you go. The seller's purchase of replacement property. So this is the seller needs to find a property first in
We're
order to
miss
say you're.
we don't see your screen.
Oh, you don't? Oh, did I? Oh, wait. Where are we going here? Hold on. Now you should see it.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it's the seller's has to find a property. Um, your seller doesn't want to sell his property until he finds something that he wants to buy. So that's what this form is used for. So yeah, it's 17 days for them to find the property, and I would try to check the close of replacement property as as
Hmm.
as contingent and see if you can get away with it. Most of these, the time periods for inspections and appraisals and all that on both forms are usually delayed until this event happens. Either they get into escrow on the buyer's property, or in this case, they find their replacement property and they are in escrow. Usually, all the time frames um, happen days after that event has happened, with the exception of the buyer's deposit. So, because any listing agent is going to want to make sure that that buyer has some skin in the game and he is serious that he wants to enter into this transaction no matter what, giving the seller time to find their property or getting into escrow on the sale of their property. So that's usually the only thing that is by the agreement, which would be 3 business days after acceptance.
So with COVID, what's your suggestion should one of the parties claim COVID is delaying and you've already hit all your time frames?
Well, then there should have been a CVA on file that that deals with all that, because every contingency then is extended 30 days if there is an effect by COVID.
Right.
So
It helps both buyer and seller using the
right,
COVID form, because it can be the
absolutely,
seller that's delayed on something here. Yeah.
yeah,
So pretty much the COVID forms override everything else.
Right.
as far as contingency timeframes and releases.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So, Patricia, do we have any questions? So not, I'm trying
What's
to
your
check.
okay. What's your
Go ahead.
advice on tenant occupied sales if you're representing the buyer and needing to have one of those vacant prior to closing for financing?
Well, I mean, what I've been advising my agents is that if, you know, as Jeff mentioned this morning, cash for keys, that is an option, getting into an agreement to get whatever they need vacant. Um, but I'd rather not see my agents be doing that negotiation. I think it's really a landlord tenant issue. So the landlord and tenant should be talking and trying to arrange something. And as Jeff had said, in rent control, make sure that that landlord is if it is under rent control, then is abiding by those guidelines, as we say. So, so they're not shortchanging the tenant in order to get them out. That just so that they're covered, so that they don't have anything go back on them. What about you?
We've had a couple issues recently where the sellers couldn't get the tenants out, couldn't get their agreements. They wouldn't do it up front. And we've got some right now where I've advised the agent, I don't think I'd even write the offer on the property, knowing you've got 7 separate tenants and 7 bedrooms, and your
Right.
clients have a timing issue. I just said, I know it's the only one out there, but you really got to work on the listing agent, and don't open escrow. Put some kind of protection in there for your buyer that the seller has to perform to get some kind of agreement in writing.
Yeah.
We had another one where there was 10 different tenants in a 4-bedroom house, and it took our agent a week and a half to get a cash for keys agreement set up with all of them before they opened escrow.
Right.
Good luck on a closing time. Is my
Yeah,
fear.
exactly. Exactly. What other forms can we
Regards
go
to
down?
Avid,
Yes, yes.
Courtney asked, what if something is subjective, like loud noise to me might not be to you?
Well, we don't use, good question. We don't use adjectives. So we wouldn't use loud noise. What we would use is noise. Agent heard noises from upstairs, or agent heard noises from the street. So we don't. That's a good point. I'm glad that question came up, because we don't say large crack. We don't embellish. We don't speculate as to what is the cause. We don't say a water stain on the ceiling. We say there's a stain on the ceiling. We're not the experts, so all we are talking about is what we're observing. So, and we certainly do not see any. We don't use any adjectives. So, good question.
We've got a lot of older condos down here, so I advise the agents to put something like the noise is audible from adjoining units. Smells can be, like food smells or aromas
Hmm.
can be noticed from adjoining units. Something in that verbiage that isn't going to scare anybody away, but makes them aware that they're going to smell the spaghetti next door or hear
Right.
the kid playing in his bedroom kitty corner.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, you know, nobody wants to. The fear is that you're going to talk them out of purchasing this. So, but the problem is that you don't say something about the noise next door, and then the new buyer gets in there, and suddenly there's all this noise, and it's like, how could you not have heard this? And it's like, so then it becomes a disclosure issue that everybody's trying to hide this. So yeah, you have to disclose, and like I said, it is a it's a it's something to it's to notify, put the buyer on notice of all these issues with the thing, with the property, because to discourage them, really to discourage them. And I got that wording. I want to show you where I got that wording. So I'm going to go back to, wait, hold on. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. Hold on, because this is a great resource for all of you agents. So this is the homepage of CAR. This is what you should be seeing. Is that correct? The homepage for car.org.
Yep.
Okay. So you go to Transaction Center, and there's Forms Advisor and Forms Tutor. So you're going to click on that. And Forms Advisor, you can go through a whole questionnaire, and it's going to spit out a whole bunch of forms that you should be using on that transaction. But what I want to show you is Forms Tutor. So go to Forms Tutor, and there's a couple of things that I want you to note here. The first thing is this great thing that CAR has done, the Consumer RPA Summary. You should be sending this to any new buyer that you have. You should also be sending this to your sellers. And what it is you click on it, and it will, all you have to do is enter their email, and it will send them a link to this document with a passcode that's good for 60 days. And it is a tutorial that step by step, if you can see it right there, there's little hands that are pointing, and every single line of the RPA they can click on, and it'll explain every single line. And it keeps track of where they were and how long they looked at it. And it's a great tool. Nobody can say nobody ever went over the RPA with me, because there's evidence that they've opened it and how long they've stayed, where they looked, and all of that. So, especially if you're using a DocuSign or a digital ink, if it's a first-time buyer, I'm always on the phone with them. If I'm not in person with them, I'm on the phone with them, going over the contract with them line by line before they sign or initial. But this is also a good tool to use for those buyers. And like I said, send it to your sellers, because Mr. Seller, you're also going to see this, and you should know what the RPA is all about. But also, in regards to this, the Forms Tutor, not every form is on here, but there are a lot of good forms, and our friend, the Agent Visual Inspection disclosure, is here, and these little blue buttons, it tells you what the form is about. It also gives you guides on how to fill it out, and it is a great tool. So if you're wondering about a specific form and you can't get a hold of Richard or I, look in Forms Tutor and see if it's in here, and it gives you some information about it. It's a great resource. It really is. I can't talk about it enough. So that's a great thing to look at. So
I need to spend more time in there myself. I can always learn something.
Exactly. And also, like I said, not everything is there, but the big ones are there. And regarding the RPA, the summary thing, do it to yourself. Send it to yourself and look at what your client's going to be looking at. So that's a great tool for everybody. So, anyways, so do we have any questions?
I'm not seeing any
So
new questions.
I'm not seeing any new questions either. Richard, anything else you wanted to go over?
Just a notation that the LA area has a lot more local disclosures than we have in Long Beach. So we have not implemented a new office disclosure page or anything. We just have the ABA, affiliated business disclosure right now. There's
Okay.
just so many things that LA has that are not applicable to us, and what items are on, that are on the Calabasas forms that aren't on a form here, they're all in the SBA or other places. So we haven't required a form like that.
Okay.
Are there items you can think of that are statewide, basically, that need to be
Well,
talked
there
about?
is the state, that's an important one. The statewide, what is it?
SBSA.
Buyer and seller. Yeah, buyer and seller advisory. And if you talk to, I don't know about what your policy is there, but if you talk to attorneys, they're suggesting that needs to be included with the RPA. I haven't made that announcement yet, but because I think it's a lot. It especially was a lot when you had to initial every single page. But it is. I do see that some agents are including it with the offer. So,
I
like I
advise
said,
that.
they, yeah,
The first time I write an offer with a client, it can be an hour and a half on the phone going through it because I attach a lot of those forms to my offers.
mm-hmm.
Back in the day when you had to meet face to face, I just always felt
Right,
the more I could disclose to a buyer up front and their rights, the better off I was. And it's hard now with DocuSign because they're not reading hardly anything.
no,
I
they're not.
think we've got 2 attorney clients that are, actually reading everything, but they're just hitting the yellow button, and that's going to be a tough one if something goes awry down the road. Well, I don't know what I signed. It was just a yellow button.
Right.
So we
Yes.
definitely, every agent needs to spend time with the client at least the first time when they go over an offer. And if there's any changes on a second offer that they make, they need to spend some time to go over it all. And mark your notes, mark your notepad that when you talk to them, what you discussed. Keep copious notes because it can come back and bite you later on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. So, that was about it for me. I don't know, Richard, if you had anything else.
No, I think this is a really good informative day on disclosures.
Yeah.
You need to
Thank
find
you.
a perfection or master on the templates, and I want to sit down and watch that one too.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you all for joining us, and until the next one, which I think we're doing them twice a month now. So I think the first Wednesday in August will be our next one. Okay. And we'll figure out what to talk then. Okay.
In the meantime, reach out, text, call, email. We're here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Patricia.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.